Halloween is directed by David Gordon Green and stars once again Jamie Lee Curtis reprising her role as Laurie Strode. This is the official sequel to the first film that was directed by John Carpenter. It's retconning every single film in between the two. So Halloween 2 never happened, Halloween H2O never happened, Halloween Resurrection never happened, which I kind of already assumed that anyway. So as Michael Myers is being transported to a new facility, the bus crashes, letting himself and all the other patients escape. Laurie Strode has been preparing for this night for the past 40 years. She has a stockpile of guns and a home filled with traps, and she is ready to finally destroy Michael Myers once and for all. I have not been this excited for a new movie this year since Mission Impossible Fallout. I was so ready for this movie. I am such a massive fan of the Halloween films. I mean, I own all of them on Blu-ray. Even the crappy ones. I mean, granted, I have a collection, okay? But, I'm the type of guy who seeked out the producer's cut of the Paul Rudd one because I wanted to see if it was any better than the original. And it is. But that's the level of fandom I'm at here. The Halloween films, they kind of mean something to me. And I think I go into them a little bit more critical than perhaps your average fan who just wants a horror movie and wants to see Michael Myers kill some people. If that's all you want, you're going to be totally happy. But I was disappointed in this movie. Very disappointed. It's not a bad film. I certainly do not hate this film. I think the word is frustrated. I'm just very frustrated because there are shades of greatness throughout this film, and we'll talk about those first. Jamie Lee Curtis provides all of the best elements of this movie. Her portrayal of Laurie Strode now is fierce, badass, but most of all believable, because when you go through a traumatic experience in life like what she went through, you become very paranoid. You start to over-prepare, because you don't want that to ever happen to you or any of your loved ones again. So I totally bought into what she has now become as this very quiet, secluded woman who has a gate around her house and all of these secret hideaways in the house, because she is basically planning for the inevitable escape of Myers because she recognizes that he is more than human. And she still believes in the boogeyman after having experienced him in the first film. It wasn't just that I liked seeing Jamie Lee Curtis back in a Halloween film, though. They really did handle that storyline very well. Her daughter is portrayed by Judy Greer, and she had a very difficult youth because most of her youth was also being trained for the inevitable return of Michael Myers. And so she has a lot of baggage with her mom, and they don't really get along well. And I loved that part of the film. I loved it. But then it decides to do some other things we'll talk about in a second. Michael Myers is great in the film. He looks cool. The mask is good. He doesn't look atrociously young and small like he did in H2O with the really clean mask. The look of Michael Myers is great. And I also appreciated that Nick Castle reprised him in certain scenes. And so that was really nice to see. There are a few callbacks to the first film that didn't really feel necessarily like just nostalgia, but actually added a unique twist to the film. One in particular in a classroom early on, and one towards the end, which I, of course, will not spoil. But there are also a lot of kills in the movie that are sort of almost directly ripped from other films. There's a bathroom scene that we have seen in the trailer that is very much so like a bathroom scene in H2O. And there are some kills that are very much so like the first film. I also like the dynamic that's explored with Will Patton's character, police officer, and Jamie Lee Curtis. They meet up for a second, and it seems like they might team up, and that's kind of exciting because there is some backstory there, which you'll see when you experience the film. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I really like where this could go. There are certain scenes that feel almost like John Carpenter directed them, and then there are other scenes that feel very much so like David Gordon Green directed them, who up until now has primarily directed dramas and comedies. And now for the first time in his career, he's directing a full-fledged horror film, and I have to be honest, it kind of shows. There are sequences throughout the movie that feel like a more seasoned horror director would have seen it 1,000 times and decide not to do that. There's a very elongated creeping through the house scene that does not have much suspense. Let's get into my negatives here because this movie was very disappointing for me. There are aspects, as I said, that are so good, and that's what makes some of the other choices so frustrating. There's a complete lack of atmosphere here. One of the best parts of John Carpenter's Halloween, and really most of his movies, even the not so great ones, is he is so good at atmosphere. And movies like Trick or Treat, for instance, which my wife and I just reviewed, understand the atmosphere of the holiday and what it could mean. this movie has very little atmosphere. It doesn't really feel like you get set up. It doesn't feel like a lot of tension is built. And so much of it is diffused by completely misplaced comedy. Danny McBride was a major creative force behind the film, who I love. Eastbound and Down. I liked him in Alien Covenant. I think he is hilarious and an extremely talented actor. But there's a lot of comedy in the movie that just did not work. And when you feel like you're getting to the point where you might kind of be on edge, there'll be a scene with two cops in a car joking about their lunch. Like one has a very exotic type of baguette sandwich and he's explaining it, and the other just has a brownie and chocolate pudding, and they have like this whole scene about that. And it's just this most random, misplaced moment. There's a lot of stuff like that in the film. As a result, it feels like the movie is unfocused. It's trying to be a horror film that tributes the original. It's trying very much so to be its own movie, and a few specific plot points I'll get into in a second without spoiling anything. But it's also trying to be funny. It has Laurie Strode as this badass, and it has her family, Judy Greer, her daughter, and then Judy Greer's daughter, Laurie's granddaughter. And it's just a lot of people running around, and some of them have no purpose in the film, particularly the granddaughter character. There's just a lot of characters that are in the film specifically to run away from Michael Myers and really have nothing else to add to the film. And this is where the film gets very frustrating, because I loved the setup with Laurie. I loved it. I was so ready for it. But it focuses so much on her granddaughter and a high school dance and the romantic drama between her and a boy in a scene that I just saw in Goosebumps 2, by the way. The exact scene occurs. And there's so many choices like that built upon the cliches we are so used to seeing in these films. And I am wondering why all these years later they've chosen to get all of these pieces together to make a sequel to one of the best horror films ever, saying the rest of them don't matter, and they basically do the same thing again, but just sort of shuffle a few things around and have all these needless characters in the movie that don't need to be there. The biggest problem I have with this film involves a character and a choice towards the start of the third act that blows my mind. It's a major spoiler, and I can't get into it, but it's the type of risk that if it paid off, it would have been very interesting, but it doesn't. When the film ended, my friends and I, there was like 4 of us, and we just turned to each other and we were like, what the hell was spoilers all about? And everybody was just baffled by it. It is the strangest choice that I've seen in a movie like this in a while. I can't believe that this choice went across as many desks as it did and got approved as many times as it did, because it's just the most random thing that actually is instantaneously thrown away. I mean, within 2 minutes. I wish there was more Jamie Lee Curtis. She was so great in the movie, and it should have just been about her. I do not need a high school dance. I don't need random young people who are talking about getting high and they're going to have sex and Michael's going to kill them. I feel like that entirely is a demographic choice. Like, well, if we're going to have another Halloween movie, it has to appeal to young people, right? Well, no, it's rated R. You got to be like 17 to see it. So what's the point? Just have it be entirely Laurie focused. But it's not. It goes away from her far too much. And every time it does, it just kind of lost interest. And towards the end, that specific choice I hinted at was so strange and out of left field, along with the comedy. It just diffused so much of the tension. There wasn't enough atmosphere either. In the end, this film revs to life in spurts. There are moments that I thought were just so good, and one moment towards the end that I loved so much, it gave me chills. And that's why the movie is so frustrating, because there are so many parts of it that I was like, oh my God, you understand. And then other choices where I just sat there thinking, this is certainly never the way I would ever approach a movie like this. And it's very strange to me. It's also kind of Terminator 2 in some ways. I mean, Laurie Strode is basically Sarah Connor. She encountered a seemingly unstoppable entity that could not be killed and just kept coming for her over and over again. And now that she has escaped this thing, she has trained herself to be a badass and is awaiting its return, and everyone around her thinks she's insane. So, I mean, I imagine that may have been the pitch Like, hey, let's make Laurie Strode Sarah Connor. And Michael Myers is like the Terminator, except he's not good, he's bad. And, we have a new movie. Also, why is it called Halloween? We have 3 movies called Halloween now. Like, whenever I talk about this movie to anybody now, I'm always going to have to differentiate which one it is. I mean, as fans, don't we all say Rob Zombie Halloween? None of us say Halloween when referring to Rob Zombie's remake. We just call it the Rob Zombie movie. What am I supposed to call this one? 2018 Halloween? I guess. They should have called it Halloween Returns or something like that. I think that was actually the working title. This movie, it's okay. I'm more frustrated, I think, than most. I feel like most people are going to walk into this movie and leave thinking, oh, it was fine, it was okay. Like, or it was really good. It was the best Halloween sequel. But, I mean, come on. When you have movies like Curse of Michael Myers and Halloween Resurrection, when you have, like, a bunch of webcams set up and oh my god, that movie. I mean, obviously the film is going to look better when you compare it to that. But to be completely honest, I like Halloween 2 more than this one. I'm going to give Halloween 2018 a C. I encourage you to go see the film for yourself. Don't listen to my opinion or, a website that aggregates a score. Make up your own mind. Go see it for yourself because you might like it more than me. You might like it less than me. I don't know. I don't really know, actually, how fans are going to react to this because horror fans are very different than your average movie fans. Like, some just want to know about what the kills are like or what weapons the person uses or what the mask looks like. There's certain horror devices that horror fans really dig. I like all that stuff too, but I also want a compelling narrative, and this movie just, it was unfocused. Guys, thank you so much, as always, for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. And if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.